Well, whether we know it or not, I suspect that we all have a spiritual map, an itinerary for how our lives will go that we think we're following anyway. Authenticity, happiness, our true selves, finding that, the good life, the examined life that's worth living. There are lots of possibilities for what kind of map we ride around on, but what should it include? All those things, some of those things, how do we do that? Our title today is Renewing the Spirit of Self and Community, and that underlines one of the chief functions of a congregation as I see it. We focus on the renewal of both the self and our community every week. We renew the self through community and the community through self. We each get out our roadmap each week and we compare notes on how the trip's been. We share shortcuts and wondrous side trips. We can renew ourselves for the journey through talking with others who have had the same kinds of challenges that we've had. Mostly the fact that we do this every week adds up to fortifying and reinforcing each of us for the tough parts of the trip, which are most of them actually, right? And also we can see new roads. As a young person, I loved Bob Dylan, and I loved his song Tombstone Blues. In that song, he says, and the National Bank at a profit sells roadmaps for the soul to the old folks home and the college. Now that stayed with me all these years. Life expectancy has gone up a lot since 1965, so you don't hear about old folks homes all that much anymore. But the reality is still sort of the same. Even for the most privileged among us, college, if we get to do it, and retirement prove to be about the only time we get to sit back and breathe. The rest of the time, it's heads down and keep moving. And as a young person, this hit me hard. It was a realization. I thought Bob was right about that. Because in the immortal words we heard later in life from Chef, voiced by the immortal Isaac Hayes, of course, there's a time and place for everything, children. It's called college. Well, you have to put off being young until you retire is one of the things you're also going to hear about that. That, I think, is where the National Bank at a profit sells roadmaps for the soul to the old folks home and the college. I think if any of you young folks want to talk to some of the older folks and the elders in the room, they will say, don't do that. That's the greatest mistake you will ever make, is waiting to be young until you're retired. Bob was warning about the capitalist machine, at least as I saw it as a young socialist, the capitalist machine that loads us all onto a conveyor belt, and we become objects that generate profit for others, from college loan debt to medical debt at the end. I decided that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to live an examined life even when I was 35 years old. But how the heck do you do that? How do you keep your map fresh while you have to feed a family? We know on this map, I think, that we carry in our heads where the edges usually are. Don't fall off over there. Usually we know where the center is. That might be family or justice or love or community and things like that. And sometimes we decide to realign our values. But unfortunately, for the most part, we just have to keep going. Usually, somehow though, we can find renewal if we start conversation. And that's why I believe in conversation so much. The American philosopher Henry Bugbee And he's a guy I'm going to be going to Colorado to talk about in a couple of weeks. He's not much known, but he was probably the best exemplar of a philosopher who tried to follow Henry David Thoreau's philosophy to the letter. And he said, philosophy is the clarification of what we know in our bones. And that's why I am not afraid of philosophy, and I suggest you aren't either. It's about the clarification of what we already know. It's our intuition of what is right. Remember the quote from Walt Whitman I use fairly often, your heart knows what to accept and what to reject. I like that idea. It's simple, and it's what we all have to do from time to time somehow is stop and find out what we're really feeling in our bones. That's when renewal happens, isn't it? Taking the time to lean back and say, ah, and take a breath for a moment. That's what congregating with others can do. We take time out to sit down with other human beings and think about that map and how well we're living into those things our bones have long ago told us. We meet the young as they discover who and what they will be in life. A congregation is one of the few places in America where multi-generations still gather. The young meet the old meet the young. We elders perhaps can be of help. We share our roadmaps, we clarify, and together we can see how an examined, purposeful life can be lived, and we can discover that on our own. To conclude today, I want to share with you a little idea from the Tao Te Ching, chapter 38. As some of you know, I love translating the Tao Te Ching. It's one of the most complex philosophical texts in the world, and one of the oldest ones. It says this, the wise do not strive and are therefore effective. The lackluster never stop striving and therefore achieve little. The wise never force, knowing force gets nothing done. The wise bring compassion because they aren't thinking about it. Those concerned with appearances have good reason to coerce others. Those concerned only with ritual must use brute force. So, only in not striving are we followers of the way. That's the Tao. Are we followers of the Tao? Only in not forcing do we lead appropriately. Only in not coercing do we encourage ritual. This is why the wise pay attention to the real, keeping watch on the fruit, not the flower, the one taking the other. And you can see that's why I'm a bit of a Taoist myself and one of the roadmaps. And look, Rev J is coming in. Plane from Philadelphia was late today, and so we're so glad you have made it and are joining us today. Rev Kelli.
As I've told you a number of times, I'm a humanist who prays. It is unimportant to me where the prayer goes. Prayer changes us, not that. And one of my favorite writers of prayer is Ted Loder. Ted Loder was a United Methodist minister in Pennsylvania, and his book, Guerrillas of Grace, not gorillas, but guerrillas, warriors of grace, is a classic written in 1984. And this one is a prayer that lives in my heart. I share it with you. Gentle me, Holy One, into an unclenched moment, a deep breath, a letting go of heavy expectancies, of shriveling anxieties, of dead certainties, that softened by silence, surrounded by the light and open to the mystery, I may be found by wholeness, upheld by the unfathomable, entranced by the simple, and filled with the joy that is you. So much in there for me, and I want to talk a little bit today about the joy that is you. Because if I know the holy anywhere, it is in your faces, in your words, your thoughts and deeds, in your hands, in your checkbooks, in your willingness to try a new thing. So I'll tell you just a little story of how I came here to First Unitarian Society in February of 2015. I had been working for the Minnesota Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. I was the executive director of a tiny, tiny state agency. We tried to punch above our weight, and sometimes we did, but it was a really hard go. And at one board meeting, the board said, "We just can't afford to pay you anymore." It was hard for them, and it was hard for me, and I sat at home and cried for a little while. And pretty soon, I got a call from David Breeden, a man I respected a lot, knew from around, but didn't know you well, and he said, "I hear you're looking for a job. You want to come work for me?" And I knew he was new at FUS, and so I said, "Yeah, sure." And the social justice coordinator, 15-hour-a-week job, had just left, and I came in and talked, and he said, "You want to be a social justice coordinator?" And I said, "Well, I want to work for you, but I'm a minister. I'm a social justice minister." And he said, "Okay, let's adjust the hours so we can get you the pay that works." So we did that, and over time, more hours came and more hours came until the portfolio grew a bit and a bit. And we got to know each other and what we wanted to do and what dreams you had for this congregation. I didn't come in and start social justice. Marianne Lundquist said the other day, "Kelli, you put it on the map." I disagree with that, Marianne. I think that you were far on your way, and this congregation for decades has been doing awesome, amazing social justice work. I just got to come and be a guide for a little while. Yes, that's to you. When I got here, the solar garden project was well underway, and I was told, "You'd better get on board because this is happening." I mean, I actually think in those words. We did that. We did the solar garden work. Many other pieces of things we've done. We've done anti-racism work, never moved that as far down the pike as I would like, but that work will continue on, and your board has a plan for the next step on that work. We did the work on reproductive justice, and I think of all the things that I've been a part of here, I am most proud of this congregation for saying yes when we were asked, did we want to join a lawsuit to challenge abortion restrictions in state law in Minnesota? And your board thought a lot about it. And they said, well, we're in favor of the idea, we think, tell us more. And boy, we talked about it. And will we be safe in our building? We talked a lot about safety and agreed that it was important for us to use our institutional strength to join that lawsuit. And we joined it on a religious freedom claim. We said that the provision in Minnesota law that required fetal tissue, whether the result of abortion or miscarriage, be buried or cremated, assumed a level of personhood that we did not, and was an affront to our religious dignity. That's how we said it. We talked about our OWL work. We talked about Margaret Sanger coming here to speak. We talked about the long history of activism in this congregation. That law, just before that lawsuit was to be decided, about 2 years in, the lawyers asked us to step back. There was a challenge to our standing, and we always knew that might be an issue. And we said yes because the most important thing for us was to the lawsuit to go forward. So we stepped back, the lawsuit went forward, and we won. This past week, the last challenge to that lawsuit was overcome, and it's done. It's done. That's on the books, and those laws are no longer constitutional. We will still need our legislators to remove them from the books because, as we know, court decisions can be overturned. So the work doesn't finish, but you'll pick it up again. We will always pick that work up again. What I know in my bones is that spirituality and justice must go hand in hand. As the former president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, Bill Sinkford, said, justice without spirituality is hubris. Spirituality brings us to humility. Justice without spirituality is hubris. And spirituality without justice turns into navel-gazing. We must do something with our enlightenment. I have been so honored over these past 9 years that with your time, talent, and treasure, you have supported a professional position of social justice minister. You are rare in our association in doing that, and it has been my honor to serve you in that way. I've said this to many of you before. You've made me a better minister. I go to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Ames, Iowa, starting in August, and feel confident about my ability to be the senior minister of that congregation because I've had a good example to follow, and because you have let me be a part of your path as this congregation extends behind and before. You've let me be a part of this. Now, I'll just say one last thing. I'm the party guest who doesn't leave when her party is over. We're having this celebration today, and I'll be here next week, and I'll be here the following week on the 23rd when we'll have David's party. So it's not my last day, but I am grateful for the folks who have helped us to celebrate this day and for all that we've meant to each other. Thank you.
That's just like me, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome all, thank you. And Kelly. Yes. Madonna mic is on. I was raised appropriately, I promise you. I'm sure if my mother is watching this, she would probably say one thing, Kelly: we don't go behind preachers and preach after them. But I would, if y'all don't mind, just can I love on you for a few minutes? For you, this is Reverend Kelly. For me, this is Auntie Kelly. And I have to speak to that, and I have to do what I felt moved to do when I began to do this work. Actually, I don't need this one, right? So I'm reminded of a song that would say simply, a little more oil in my lamp, keep it burning. A little Caribbean song that they would often say, a little more oil in my lamp, so I say. A little more oil in my lamp, keep it burning. Keep it burning to the break of day. Auntie Kelli has been burning since I got here. And we know this for sure because of the work that she has already just explained. There is no way to experience Kelli without some kind of fervency. And so I want to offer this quick little narrative, if I may, that I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, part of my life, and there was a man by the name of Mr. Shepherd. Mr. Shepherd had a wonderful manicured lawn, and we as kiddos would go outside onto the street and play kickball. The funny thing is that if the kickball hit his lawn, he would come outside. We knew we did not want to do that, so we created a rule that if you kicked the ball into his yard, you had to go get it. So you were going to feel the weight of his fury. You were going to be scorched with attitude. You were going to be met with something that you just didn't want to deal with. If I may for a quick second tell you though, one day I ended up kicking that ball and it went into Mr. Shepherd's yard. And I had to sit with the fact that I was probably going to be scorched. I had to sit with the fact that I was going to get in trouble by this elderly man who kept his lawn perfect. So I decided when I kicked this ball this time actually to walk down the street, down his driveway, and onto his sidewalk and knock on his door. I knocked on his door and I said to him, "Can I get my ball?" He said, "Why didn't you just go and grab it like you normally do?" I said, "I notice that you do something very unique. This unique thing was that Mr. Shepherd would go down to his porch, and then he would step down off of his stoop and take the light from the lantern in front of his house. And then he would take that and then go and burn his grass with it." So I said, "I see you do this thing where you burn your grass." He said, "I do that to minimize the weeds. I do that because it makes healthy nutrients in my ground." It's a practice. He was a farmer at one point. And here he is sharing with me a little bit of why he burnt his grass and why it had such healthy potential the following season. I had to bring this to you because Mr. Shepherd, like you, I call you a keeper of the flame. Keepers of the flame know how to set you ablaze. They don't just burn you actually, they actually warm you. They take the dim moments of circumstances, some of you have had pastoral care, and they light it up for you to see yourself and see a reflection of who you are. They take the opportunity to deal with the weeds of injustice and stand at the city hall and make some crazy noise. They are the ones at the end of the day that keep us burning. They are our call, maybe in the Unitarian Universalists, as we say, a call to worship. But Kelli reminds us of a call of worthiness. And so I would be remiss if I did not offer you this opportunity. I got to share a tradition with her. And I had to be very clear. I would like to extinguish this chalice. I would like to extinguish this chalice because you have been a chalice for me. I had to watch you and learn. I had to learn what this community needed. I had to hear courageously. It came with conviction. This is my teacher. David is my mentor, but this was my teacher. And I am grateful to do this for you. I come from a tradition where we would wash feet, not because of some wonderful symbol of Christianity, but because it was about humbling yourself.
I got a pedicure for this.
We came prepared. We came prepared. And look, and the Crocs, y'all. I told you we walk in wonders. Come on.
Come on. All right, what do I do?
What do? You just let me guide you for
Okay.
a few seconds as you've guided me.
Okay.
Beautiful are the feet, it says. Beautiful are the feet that walk in justice. Beautiful are the feet of those who set the path forward. I thank you, and I think the congregation can get behind me on this. We thank you for walking in light, walking in love, walking in passion, and walking most of all in authenticity of a ministerial presence that we had the experience to enjoy. I take your other foot and we release you into the fullness of your ministry. That it won't just be a chalice that you are, but this time it will be fire. And you will set ablaze a new work, a new opportunity that will help a congregation grow, transform, and be exceedingly and abundantly of what they could have even thought or ask or think. Because you, in this space, in this humanist space, you are beyond belief.
Oh, beloved. Thank you.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh.